Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome one and all to a morning dew edition of the Dew Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular. Of course, got to unmute that microphone.
Hello.
How's everybody doing? It's finally raining in New York. Is it raining in the city?
I am so happy. My inner Holden Caulfield rejoices.
Yes, it's been a while.
Rainy autumn day in New York. That is a perfect day for melancholy, bad poetry writing.
That's right. That's right, and it has been a while. We've had wildfires in New York, even in the city, Prospect Park.
Inwood Park.
Yeah, yep. So finally get a little moisture in the air, some rain. It's good for the environment. So yes.
Listen, man, there is nothing like a rainy autumn New York day and like sitting in a bookstore.
Yep, I agree. Those are good times.
In a cafe.
Well, hey, we have
going
our
to
first,
one of the big museums, going to like the Museum of Natural History. That's
yeah.
why I say, like Holden Caulfield, he knew what to do in New York on an autumn day.
Yes.
Give him that. You
should give a Holden Caulfield tour of the city, actually. That would be a good tour.
Has anyone ever done that?
That would be clever.
I've definitely seen people like do it on literature tours, like New York book tours, like include that as part of the tour.
Right.
Yeah, you go to the carousel.
Yeah,
go to the
exactly.
Lake. Where do the ducks go in winter?
That's right. So very good to have some rain finally in New York City, and we get our first actual weekend, so you can enjoy the rain in a few hours. It has been a long stretch of shows. We've had a great time, so thank you guys all for being part of it with us. 489 strong on YouTube to start the show, 337 on Rumble. Please hit that like button, hit that follow button on Rumble, hit that subscribe button on YouTube.
By good time, he means we've been calling each other at 3 o'clock in the morning and weeping openly.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. It has been a bit of a gauntlet, but no complaining.
I can't do it. I can't fucking do it.
That's right.
It's been like that.
It's been a lot of that. So we'll get a couple nights off from that at least. Well, folks, good morning. It is a relatively good morning news-wise. I woke up to this. This is not the worst news to wake up to. ICC issues arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu for alleged Gaza war crimes. That's right. It broke in May of this year that they were seeking an arrest warrant, and
beautiful.
Bureaucracy moves slowly, but here it is.
I keep expecting to wake up to World War III, but look, woke up to good news.
Yeah, better than World War III, for sure. Warrants for Israeli PM and former defense minister put them at risk of detention if they go to some other countries. The International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants for the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the country's former defense minister Yoav Gallant, and Hamas leader Mohammed Deif for alleged war crimes relating to the war. They had issued arrest warrants for other Hamas leaders, but they have since been killed, and so those have been rescinded. The warrants put Netanyahu and Gallant at risk of arrest if they travel abroad. There have been unconfirmed reports that Deif may have been killed by Israel, so maybe he's been killed as well. The court's chief prosecutor, Karim Khan, had requested the arrest warrants in May, saying there were reasonable grounds to believe Netanyahu and Gallant bore, quote, criminal responsibility for causing mass starvation in Gaza that constituted war crimes and crimes against humanity. The U.S. has previously welcomed ICC war crimes warrants against Vladimir Putin and other Russian officials for atrocities committed in Ukraine, while denouncing the court's pursuit of Netanyahu and Gallant, a mixed stance which has exposed the Biden administration to accusations of double standards from many UN members, particularly from the global south. Yes. The three-judge panel wrote in its unanimous decision to issue warrants for Netanyahu and Gallant. The chamber considered that there are reasonable grounds to believe that both individuals intentionally and knowingly deprived the civilian population in Gaza of objects indispensable to their survival, including food, water, and medicine, and medical supplies, as well as fuel and electricity. Well, yeah, I mean, Gallant is on tape saying that they're going to do just that. I mean, it's kind of an open and shut case, I think. Israel has rejected the jurisdiction of the court, which is based in The Hague and denies war crimes in Gaza. The ICC said on Thursday that Israel's acceptance of the court's jurisdiction was not required. The Israeli Foreign Ministry said in September that it had submitted 2 legal briefs challenging the ICC's jurisdiction and arguing that the court did not provide Israel with the opportunity to investigate the allegations itself before requesting the warrants. Yeah, you're not dealing with Matthew Miller here. Oh, yeah, we're going to let them investigate it and get back to us. Some member states have ignored ICC warrants before, but Netanyahu and Gallant would nonetheless risk arrest if they traveled to any country that had signed the 1998 Rome Statute, which obliges the member parties to enforce the jurisdiction of the ICC when there is an arrest warrant out for war crimes and or, of course, crimes against humanity. So which countries are these? The ones in green. The ones in green are countries that technically, according to this warrant, Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant should not be welcome in. The green indicates a state party. The yellow indicates signature has not been ratified. The orange, which is us and Russia, indicates that we have withdrawn signatures. And then the red,
this is why we shouldn't be fighting Russia. We have so much in common.
Yeah, so much in common. Yeah, exactly. This is why we should be able to get along so well. Canada, Mexico, all of South America, not much of a surprise. More than half of Africa, and the EU. The EU, as I understand, are all member states of the Rome Statute. And so Benjamin Netanyahu, not a welcome man. He is a wanted man, technically speaking, in all of these states, unless they issue a statement that they are going to choose to ignore it in this case, which this verdict is a couple hours old, to my knowledge. None have come out and said that. We will have to update you on that if and when that happens. But for now, all that green is territory in which Benjamin Netanyahu is, until further clarification by any of those member states, if they do it at all, is a wanted man. And this is a small step towards justice, but it is an important one. You talk about the need to isolate Israel, to make it so that they are a pariah on the world stage. They are not welcome in the international community as long as they conduct themselves in this way. This is what that ruling says. This is the statement that makes. And so not justice served, but this is part of it. This is part of it, and it's a very important part of it because there's a whole lot of green on that map.
Yeah, going forward, Israel, I believe, and I don't think I'm being overly optimistic to believe this, for as long as it continues to exist as an apartheid state, it's not only going to be a pariah, there's going to be so much economic damage to Israel, from trade embargoes, from boycotts. We see now people won't come out if, okay, you want to stop people from protesting the Israel football team. Well, people won't go to the match.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
They just had one in France. It was the lowest attendance ever for the French national team. This is what you can expect when Israel participates in, they have their Euro singing contest. I forget what it's called.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I forget what it's called too.
I forget what it's called. You're going to have this. Israelis are not going to be able to show their faces anywhere. Universities are not going to bring in Israelis, Israeli scholars. They're not going to want to deal with the heat. They're not going to want to deal with the blowback. ultimately it's going to be a failed state. And this is something I keep saying. This isn't like a country whose people are accustomed to poverty and collapsing infrastructure. This is a population that's gotten quite fat off American largesse. They're not going to stay.
No, it's a very
They're not
decadent
going to
country.
stay. It's a very decadent. You are going to have only the people who can't afford to leave are going to stay. It is going to, even if it is able to continue as a state, it's going to be as a failed state. And I think that's going to snowball. The more people leave, the more people are going to leave. The worse the economy gets, the worse the economy is going to get. And I don't think it's sustainable. I think, look how long it took from Nelson Mandela's arrest to the final end of South Africa. And I don't think we're looking at that. I think we're well into a process here. I cannot imagine that in 10 years, Israel, as the state that we know, continues to exist under these circumstances. And these circumstances are, they've done it. You can't undo the genocide. They did it. There is not going to be any forgiveness forthcoming. And now you've got an arrest warrant. So more and more you're getting this institutional blessing of the idea that this is a rogue apartheid genocidal state. And the more that idea becomes acceptable to express on an institutional level, the less Israel is able to function. There's only so far you can go with being a vassal to the United States. Okay, so the United States is going to keep giving you money. Who the hell wants to live there? Who wants to live in a country that the rest of the world hates? Who wants their children to be citizens of this country where they're not going to be welcome anywhere around the world? Where even when they travel as tourists now, they're getting backlash from people in the countries they go to.
Right. Exactly. Yes, that is well said. And the backlash, is, at least, in this sense, a function not only of protest, but of boycott, as you said. Okay, if you're going to make a stink if we protest a soccer game, okay, we're just not showing up. Like people are just not interested in having anything to do with a nation like this, and that is going to show itself sooner than later. It already has started, and as you said, the fact that you have these international bodies putting in writing, formally declaring this as a state that has just gone way out of bounds in terms of outside the realm of acceptability on the world stage, that is going to create a compounding effect of boycotts, of disengagement, of stigmatization of that state. And it's important, and it's also important, just the ruling itself, that right now, Benjamin Netanyahu, technically speaking, is a wanted man in the EU. He can't set foot in the EU, unless one of these countries carves out an exception for him. And if they do that, let's see what backlash they face, right? I mean, it is important in creating a long overdue momentum swing. All right, why don't we take some super chats?
I just want to mention on a side note before we leave this. So we did a segment on Rumble that's a little too incendiary to put on YouTube about an Israeli comic who makes jokes about genocide.
Oh, yeah.
Thinks what they're doing to the Palestinians is very, very funny. Actually made the comparison to, having a girlfriend who keeps accusing you of cheating. Well, don't keep accusing me, then maybe I'll have to do it.
Right.
Drew a parallel to, well, don't keep accusing us of genocide. We have the means. We'll do it if you keep saying that. This guy, you have all these comedy clubs that canceled. Jimmy got dates canceled for things he said that they don't like. This guy doing sold out shows all over the country, right here in New York City. What is it? The City Winery, that place. He's been playing gigs there. Yo, man, we should get a petition going and send it out to these clubs. I don't say the guy doesn't have a right to say it, but I think boycott is a legitimate tactic of expressing speech.
Yeah, that's just consumer
choice. You can
choice.
Express speech. That's consumer choice. I think we should get a boycott going of every club that this guy is performing in.
Yeah, I agree. The Raging D-Head, thanks for the $5. These ghouls really want a pat on the back for this embargo vote. You're talking about Bernie's vote? Yeah, they can go screw themselves. How about they quit sending money to Ukraine? Yeah, that embargo vote failed. It only got 18 votes in the Senate after all this. JM, thanks for the $2 and the thumbs up. Kuznetsky Bassane, really nice work, DD, over at Jimmy Dore Show with Scott Ritter. Thank you, Kuznetsky Bassane.
Thank you.
Those clips are up now. Okay. Let's go Hillary Hinton. Enough about Holocaust and annihilation. What's your favorite underground tape, fellas? Jerky Boys, Red Tubes Bar, or Buddy Rich flies off the handle? I'm a Red Tube.
Kid's too young. He doesn't remember the Jerky Boys. I reference the Jerky Boys quite often, and he doesn't get it. He doesn't get it at all.
That's before my time. Morning Joke should move to Comedy Central. Thank you. Yeah, we have a little Morning Joe clip today as well. Got our first snow in Ohio today. Oh, wow. Yeah, it's been unseasonably warm here so far. Like, the weather has not been cold. It actually has been warm. But today we got our first rain in a while.
It's
all right,
nice.
folks.
I love looking out my window at that gray, rainy day.
There you go. It's a lucky day for Russell, first in a while. All right, folks. So one of the lessons from 2024 is that apparently Twitter more closely resembles real life than many of us thought. And
Yep.
I will eat it on this because I did not think that it was as one-to-one a reflection of reality as apparently it is, at least according to the voters. Wow. Says Robbie Starbuck. CNN admits that X now represents the average ideological makeup of the U.S. better than it ever did before Elon Musk bought it. Incredible to see them admit this after all the fear-mongering they pushed about X since Elon bought it. Let's take a look at this. These are some pretty interesting numbers.
One of the big reasons he bought Twitter/X is because he wanted to make it his own platform, remake it in his own image. And I think this really gets at it. Look at this. The party ID among those who regularly use X/Twitter for news. Back in 2022, 65% of those who regularly use Twitter/X for news were Democrats. Just 31% were Republicans. Look at where we are today. Just a completely different picture. Now it's basically split between Democrats at 48%, Republicans at 47%. And what I should note, Mr. Berman, is this new overall makeup matches the overall electorate far better. And more than that, John, look at where Mr. Musk's net worth is today versus where it was just 2 months ago. He is the richest man in the world by far. 2 months ago, look at this. His net worth was $252 billion. Look at where we are today, $314 billion. He is by far the richest man ever to be on this planet. So, yes, he's not as popular. Yes, Twitter/X perhaps is not as popular, but it's a much different platform, one that more represents Elon Musk's, let's say, political instincts, and he is now a far wealthier man.
Yeah, so I mean, if you look at this graphic here, it went from 65% Democrat in 2022 to only 31% Republican, and now it's pretty much even. So if you do the math there, the Democrats lost 17 points, and the Republicans picked up 16 in terms of representation on the platform. Now, I personally don't really recall. I mean, I have really no memory of what the app was like pre-Elon because I was reluctant
I really
to join
didn't
Twitter.
use it.
Yeah, I really didn't use it back then. I mean, we pretty much started using it for real like last year. Even in the early days of this project, we mostly just had an audio show. We would post to Facebook a bit, and that was about it. We don't recall the Jack Dorsey era personally.
We heard about it. We heard about it because we were covering things related to it,
right?
Like the Twitter files, obviously. But yeah, I didn't like it. I still don't like it. It's very clear to me that it was designed to be algorithm, brain candy, crack addict kind of a platform where you get engaged and you go back and forth. It's just so clearly an unhealthy environment, not because of who's on it, just the nature of it.
Oh yeah, no, it totally is.
I never wanted to be on it. That's why if anybody follows me on X, honestly, because I do this, there is no way I would be on X if I didn't do this. So much of the political conversation happens there. You cannot be in this space and just ignore that platform. So to maintain a presence there, I'll share a lot of memes. But generally, I don't write a lot of content because I just don't like it. I don't want to engage with that platform. It's so clearly psychologically unhealthy to spend time on X. That's not because of Elon. That's just the nature of it. It's not good for you, in my opinion.
It really is not. And it is a truly addictive thing, especially because of the fact that it is such an efficient medium through which to absorb news. Like when I woke up this morning, what did I do to check to see if there's any late breaking, i.e. the ICC warrant? Right. I opened X. I figured whatever's breaking will be there when I open the app. It'll be right there.
It'll be trending.
I'm not going to my news app and cycling through stories where there might not be an article ready. As soon as news breaks, it'll be there. And so that's why I use it. But it is a very, very dangerous trap to fall into, where I will find myself just out of habit at random points of the day opening up the app and checking, just because we're in this game. Right. So that's why we didn't really get into it before we started doing this seriously, which coincides with the Elon era. So I don't know what the Dorsey era was like. What I will say is that, and Misty has talked about this, there does seem to be far more engagement now from the MAGA people than the non-MAGA people. You'll do two anti-Israel stories, one with an anti-Trump bent to it, one just more a general anti-Israel story. The anti-Israel story will get way more engagement than the one with the anti-Trump bent, right? And that's true on YouTube as well. That's true of social media generally, but especially on X, especially on that platform. And this is why. And I'm not I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that reflects that shift. I'm always down to spar with people. Like, I think you guys have picked that up by now.
And frankly, look,
I'm not looking for an echo chamber. Right.
Yeah, when we've gotten into certain subjects that have brought out the real anti-Semites, yeah, man, they're on X, and they are able to say shit on X that they would not be able to say on most social media platforms. And having had that directed at me, my instinct was not, this platform needs to change its algorithm. They need to fix their algorithm. No, man. I mean, this is something that really I think we have to get away from. This idea that the solution to bad speech is not more speech, it's censorship. That is really insidious. It's really taken hold. And it's something I just didn't even grow up with. It just doesn't occur to me that that's the solution. There are assholes out there.
Yeah, exactly.
You hide them from view. They're just going to find another way to express that. Wouldn't you rather have them where you can keep an eye on them? Wouldn't you rather be aware of them? Maybe you can persuade them. Maybe you could say, hey, why do you think this? Like, what do you think happens when you just silo them off? You think they go away? They don't go away. They find another place to congregate.
Right. And the other thing I would just add to that is, not only on the anti-censorship front in terms of hateful speech being directed at you, which, like I said, my impulse is never to report people or to have them censored. I've never done that. Even on the quote unquote misinformation front, I would rather do the work of having to sort through the bullshit than just have people banned for posting the wrong thing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's another thing. Who watches the Watchmen?
Well, that's, yes.
Even if you think people like this, that was the whole principle behind the ACLU before they got too much lib money and became whatever the fuck they are now. That was why they fought for the right of Nazis to march in Skokie in Illinois, which was a neighborhood full of Holocaust survivors. Because it's not that they love Nazis at the ACLU. Once you open the door, that's it. That's what happened with Alex Jones, right? We all said it, including ourselves. We had a show by then. This is just the beginning. Now, if they can do this to Alex Jones, they're going to start doing it much more broadly, and that's exactly what happened. That's why we're switching to Rumble today.
Yeah, we are switching to Rumble for the final few segments, but that's more for copyright issues than anything else, because we don't know how the WWE feels about YouTube and John Oliver. So, but yeah, no, you're right. I mean, generally speaking, yeah, that's exactly right. And look, the other challenge of X is that, because there's less regulation of speech. Now, yeah, bullshit can travel faster and it creates extra work. But you know what? That extra work, that's called engagement. That's like knocking down bullshit is part of political engagement. in a free society. It's not the most pleasant part of it, but it's a necessary part of it. Like, speaking of Alex Jones, he tweeted out an old video of Trump saying he's going to avoid World War III. And because he tweeted that out, a lot of people were under the impression that Trump issued a statement about Biden authorizing these ATACMs for use in Russia, which is not true. He didn't say that. But you have a lot of people under the impression that he did because a high-profile account tweeted out an old video. So, yeah, I mean, that sucks. Do I want him thrown off the platform for doing it? No. Like, it's it just falls to people to correct him. That's what political engagement is.
There's a guy walking around Vegas right now. He's got the dick of a spider. He's got the head of a goat.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's just
why.
part
Why
of the
would
game.
we not want access to that content?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. I mean, that's just a part of the game at the end of the day. And so, yeah, at the end of the day now, it does seem that Twitter reflects reality at least more than it did in the Jack Dorsey era. Now, look, it's a social media company. It's a very politically oriented app. What you're getting on Twitter are the opinions of the most obsessed and hyper engaged. Right. So in that way, it's not a one-to-one reflection of reality, since you can't really gauge enthusiasm based on it necessarily. On some issues, you probably can. It probably matches up. But you do get now, according to this data, and the election results seem to bear this out, a more ideologically representative distribution of thought on Twitter, as it pertains to real life, than you do on some of these other platforms, including the Twitter of 2 years ago. So it's a pretty rapid shift, actually. Yeah, because a lot of Democrats have left. I mean, look, the real high-profile ones stick around because they have 1 million followers and they don't want to give that up. But according to that data there, 17% of the Democrats fled, and they've picked up 17% share among the GOP. So that's real. There was a real lib exodus, and the conservatives flooded that space, and now you have a more even representation of views.
Yeah, well, to these people, the modern so-called left, really liberals, to distinguish them, they're a religious cult. You can't disagree with a religious cult. You're evil, right? As the Scientologists would say, you're a suppressive person.
Right.
You're a suppressive person. So what do they tell you to do with suppressive people? You got to shut them out of your life. All cults will tell you that, right? You have to shut them out of your life. You can't hear any information from any other source. You have to only surround yourself with co-religionists.
Right.
This time with Blue Sky, they seem to be making a real go of it. I think this will stick a little more than the Threads Mastodon failed experiment did. But it's still not going to be successful if your measure of success is having a lot of engagement and a lot of people and a lot of cultural impact. No, it's going to be a backwater of social media, because in the end, in the aggregate, there are not a lot of libs. There are not a lot of people like this. Not a lot of people really want to live in a silo with Barbara Streisand. For most people, that's a Clockwork Orange scenario with the eyes clamped. Stop! Make it stop!
Right.
Like,
well, also,
who wants to be in that with these disgusting people?
Well, the other part of that is like an ideological homogeneous platform is never really going to be relevant. Like Parler never really became relevant because it was just right wingers who went to Parler. Look at Truth Social. I mean, Trump posts is there, but is Truth Social relevant to the public conversation? No, because it's all
the only
MAGA
thing about
people
Truth
there.
Social anybody mentions is what Trump posted.
Is what Trump
'cause he's
posts,
Trump.
right? It's basically his bulletin board. But aside from that, does anybody care what the conversation is there? No, because you're only getting one political sect,
right?
That's going there. Twitter has become more conservative, but it's still about half and half according to the numbers. So that's always going to be more relevant than a platform that says, "Hey, come here to let your lib flag fly or your MAGA flag fly." Like any space without that conflict, without that clash of ideas, is never going to signify really much of anything, because it's just a clubhouse for a certain group to flock to, and who cares what they say in their own quarters? It's about what you say to the other side. It's about how you clash with the other side. That creates conflict. That's real politics. That's what's relevant to people.
Yeah, and it's a group that most people, as we saw in these election results, find repulsive. We've talked a lot about, I mean, in this segment itself, okay, online's not real life. Well, I don't know if I would over determine the meaning of these election results. Trump didn't really gain voters, very little. He gained in certain demographics, like the demographics of his voter base shifted. But in the raw numbers, he didn't really do much better than he did before.
Well, in the raw numbers, he did less. I mean, he got fewer votes than he did in 2020.
Did he get fewer?
Yeah, I mean, by a very little. I think he lost like 2 million. Kamala lost about 15 million.
I thought he was at about the same. I haven't heard the latest numbers.
I mean, he's about the same. He's within the same ballpark. Yeah,
he's within the same ballpark. So it's not that all of this Madison Square Garden, President Camacho, I'm a MAGA maniac. It's not that it brought in more people. It's that the Democrats gave no reason for normal people to vote for them.
Exactly.
All you had left were the libs who go, oh, Beyonce. Oh, my God. Beyonce, Bey is appearing with Harris. That is not a big portion of the population. That is
right.
That is a certain kind of person. That's definitely a certain kind of person. It's not a majority. It's a very urban, very lib, very PMC cohort. It's not a majority of people. So what you saw wasn't that Trump really gained anybody. So I wouldn't say the idea that this isn't speaking to people is completely off base. It's that what the Democrats were offering was such a pile of nothing and such a turnoff, I think, to a lot of people that their vote count collapsed.
Right.
It's not so much that Trump gained with anyone. It's that the Democrats just turned everybody off. And take into account how many people just set a pox on both their houses and wouldn't vote for either.
Right. Exactly. Gavin Hillock, the U.S. got Rome Statute exemptions for states acting on their behalf by threatening to veto all UN peacekeeping missions. Thank you, Gavin. Zoran Vasilik, thanks for the donation. Eurovision is the music contest. Eurovision, that's it. I remember
Eurovision,
that's the music contest. Yep, I remember that. Cool. Thank you. Skyzar, thanks for the $10. If Israel understands that their acceptance of ICC's rulings is not necessary, then perhaps it's time to kick them out of the UN. Well, yeah, I believe that. Obviously, that's long overdue. I believe there's a sign-up petition around to do just that. Thank you, Skyzar. Appreciate that. Lawrence McNeil says, notice Biden, who was so senile he was forced out of the presidential race, is compos mentis enough to sign off use of long-range weapons by Ukraine. Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Yes, thank you for that.
And landmines, as we'll get to.
Yep, that's actually our next story coming up right now. Eric Cousseau says, well, looking forward to the final season of America. I hear there will be a huge grand finale. There you go. Thank you, Eric Cousseau. Appreciate that. All right. So, yes, we do have some news.
Well, it looks like one of my New Year's predictions is going to come true.
What's that?
Bitcoin's closing in on 100,000.
There you go. All righty. Here we go, folks. Some news out of Ukraine. The Washington Post had the exclusive on this at first, and then, of course, other outlets picked it up. But Biden approves anti-personnel mines for Ukraine, undoing his own policy. President Joe Biden has authorized the provision of anti-personnel landmines to Ukraine, two U.S. officials said, a step that will bolster Kiev's defenses against advancing Russian troops, but has drawn criticism from arms control groups. The move comes in the wake of the White House's recent authorization allowing Ukraine to use a powerful long-range missile system to strike inside Russia, part of a sweep of urgent actions the lame duck Biden administration is taking to help Kiev's faltering war effort. Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned that Moscow will retaliate for the latest missile strikes from the Army Tactical Missile Systems, or ATACMs, ATCAMs. Shipping anti-personnel landmines to Ukraine is also potentially controversial, though among a different group. More than 160 countries have signed an international treaty banning their use, noting that the indiscriminate weapons can cause enduring harm to civilians. But Kiev has sought them since Russia invaded nearly 3 years ago, and the Kremlin's forces have deployed anti-personnel landmines liberally on the front lines, impeding Ukraine's progress as it seeks to reclaim its own territory. The Biden administration is deeply concerned about Russia's assaults against Ukraine's front lines in recent weeks and sees a pressing need to blunt the advance, officials said. The Pentagon believes that the provision of the mines is among the most helpful steps the Biden administration can do to help slow Russia's attack, officials said. One official said the type of anti-personnel landmine is non-persistent, meaning that the mines self-destruct or lose battery charge to render them inactive within days or weeks, reducing the danger to civilians. The official said that Ukrainian policymakers had committed to not deploying the mines in densely populated areas. Arms control experts said that even non-persistent mines pose a safety hazard. The official and 3 others spoke about the decision on the condition of anonymity to candidly discuss sensitive internal White House deliberations. Biden had been reluctant to supply Ukraine with the mines in the face of concerns within his own administration from a wide range of anti-mine advocates who say the risk to civilians is unacceptably high. But Russia's battlefield progress in recent months has forced the White House to find fresh ways to help Kyiv, especially following the victory of President-elect Donald Trump, who has vowed to steer the conflict towards a swift conclusion. So one other way you could write that paragraph is that the Biden administration has felt a need to double down on violence and war, even as the writing is very, very clearly on the wall, that a war that was never winnable in the first place is now looking like, hopefully, knock on wood, it's going to wind down before it escalates further when Donald Trump takes office. But, of course, they cannot go quietly into a peace deal. They have to escalate further. In this case, by defying a lot of pleas from human rights groups saying that these mines have no place on the battlefield. The United States has provided Ukraine with claymores, a different type of anti-personnel mine, which are set above ground and triggered by an operator, making them permissible under mine ban conventions if used properly. Use of the new mines would be limited to Ukrainian territory with an expected focus on eastern Ukraine, one of the officials said. Russian forces have made significant advances in the Donetsk region and in recent months have gained territory at the fastest rate since 2022. Ukrainian troops have struggled to build strong defensive lines in the face of relentless drone sorties and small assault teams. Landmines could help them shore up their defenses by slowing enemy troops and channeling them to areas where they could be targeted with artillery and rockets. Neither Russia nor the United States is one of the 164 parties to the Ottawa Convention, also known as the Mine Ban Treaty. Go ahead.
Russia is our natural ally.
Yeah, right, exactly.
They like war crimes. We like war crimes.
Yeah.
They won't sign international treaties. We won't sign international treaties.
Exactly. We are natural friends. Also known as the Mine Ban Treaty that prohibits the deployment and transfer of anti-personnel landmines. Biden in 2022 revived an Obama-era policy that banned the transfer and use of U.S. anti-personnel landmines outside the Korean Peninsula. So this order is a reversal of his own policy. One Ukrainian official welcomed any, or at least in defiance of his own policy, one Ukrainian official welcomed any policy change despite the potential risks that would come with widespread deployment of the weapons. Russia uses them anyway, the official said, speaking on the condition of anonymity because of the subject sensitivity. But some human rights campaigners said that the U.S. decision to provide anti-personnel landmines to Ukraine, a signatory to the Mine Ban Treaty, is a black mark against Washington. So that's the ultimate irony. Ukraine is a signatory to the Mine Ban Treaty. Right. It's a shocking and devastating development, says Mary Wareham, Deputy Director of the Crisis, Conflict, and Arms Division at Human Rights Watch, the advocacy group, who said that even non-persistent mines hold risks for civilians, require complicated cleanup efforts, and are not always reliably deactivated. So in Vietnam, you still have people dying, stepping on mines that are 50 years old. Yeah.
No, Laos was, I believe it's Laos. They were the most mined country in history.
Yeah.
Like farmers get killed by mines all the time there now.
Yeah, and it's a piece of ongoing history that you don't hear about very often. There was the new Spike Lee movie, The Five Bloods. Did you see The Five Bloods? It was a fun movie.
I thought it was good.
Yeah, I mean it's a crazy movie. That's like 6 different genre movies in one. It's a war film, it's a historical film, it's a chase film, it's a caper film. I mean it's a heist film. It goes in a million different directions, but there is a good part of it devoted to landmines And, these guys are going to find an old treasure that was left behind when they served in Vietnam. And, there are scenes where people step on mines. They run into the anti-mine activists who go out and risk life and literally life and limb to try and clean these things up. Now, they're saying that these deactivate in a period of days or weeks, which these activists are saying not always. And when they don't, that creates a death trap for the indefinite future. But I would say even if they do deactivate in days and weeks, it's just such an unnecessary escalation at this point. Why would you make this investment this late in the game, especially when Donald Trump is saying, hey, I'm going to end this in a day? Well, yeah.
Well, that's why.
Yeah. The Trump administration in 2020 had reversed the Obama-era policy, pointing to the need for strategic use of mines to counter adversaries like Russia and China, and drawing strong condemnation from arms control advocates. It will put more civilians at risk of being injured by unexploded mines and is unnecessary from a military perspective. Biden, as a presidential candidate, said in response to Trump's decision, calling it reckless. So Biden attacked Trump for reversing the Obama policy, and now here he is. The Biden administration has already committed to supporting mine clearance efforts, well, that's nice, in Ukraine after the end of the conflict. One of the U.S. officials said that the administration will extend that commitment to helping clean up the U.S.-supplied mines. The Ukraine conflict has spurred other countries to reevaluate their opposition to anti-personnel landmines. That's a great lesson to come from all of this. We need more landmines around the world. The Baltic nations of Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia considered withdrawing from the Ottawa Convention earlier this year in order to bolster their defenses against Russian aggression, although they ultimately decided to reinforce stocks of anti-tank mines and other tools that are less hazardous to civilians. So, as we've been saying, as we've been noticing through action after action after action, they are not going to give up on this World War III operation without a fight. Even after they lose, they're authorizing longer-range missile strikes. Even as Russia updates its nuclear doctrine, now they are deploying these anti-personnel mines, which are something that Ukraine itself pledged not to use. Like I said, they are not letting this effort slip away quietly. And this is why I said, I brought this up on our show. I brought this up to Scott Ritter when we interviewed him on the Jimmy Show. It's really important right now that the incoming commander-in-chief make it known that he's going to stop all of this, because the longer this goes without that reassurance, the more dangerous the world becomes. And we heard yesterday, of course, another piece of news was that the United States evacuated its embassy in Kyiv for fear of a significant airstrike. And so, look, we hope that, we certainly hope, obviously, that no Russian response extends beyond Ukraine. We also hope that they don't destroy Ukraine. This is the other thing. Like, we are not against the ordinary people of Ukraine. This is a real perversion of this narrative that people who want peace are anti-Ukraine. It would be a tragedy for Kyiv if they were to get hit as hard as it looks like they might, according to the United States, who evacuated their embassy excuse me, in response to an escalation of Joe Biden's doing as a lame duck president. To be saber-rattling like this as a lame duck president, not even as a two-term president passing the ball to another Democrat. The country voted against this. The country explicitly voted against this, and you're doing it anyway.
Right. Yeah, well, I haven't had time to research this, but I saw a news story shared. But it was shared in meme form. That's why I'm not sure that Putin said he'd be open to ceasefire negotiations with Ukraine as long as Trump was leading the negotiations.
I have seen that reported, yeah. And as far as as far as I know, that's not really a departure from his position all along in terms of like the terms laid out. Now, in terms of what he said specifically about Trump, yeah, I haven't seen that put in ink anywhere besides a meme on Twitter, so we can't really report that as fact. But it seems consistent with what he's been saying all along, which is, hey, come to the table with those terms that we laid out, and this whole thing stops.
They are trying to create a situation where Trump can't negotiate peace because it's just escalated too far.
Exactly.
And that is just psychotic when you're talking about a nuclear armed power. and strategically, it's a pissing contest, and it's a big money grab, as we'll see, for our defense contractors.
Yep.
They're playing games with the lives of billions for profit and for strategic advantage, which for these people is the same thing.
Yes. Well said. Good point, Charles. All right, we're going to go right into the B side of this segment because speaking of Ukraine, hey, there was a show that some people used to watch, although the hosts are on the well, I can't say it because it's the first 15 seconds of the clip, but they're on a certain list that their viewers put them on after their meeting with Donald Trump. I'm talking, of course, about Morning Joe. So Ken Klippenstein tweets out, Admiral James Stavridis tells MSNBC why he thinks U.S. military aid to Ukraine is a good deal, explaining all the money is paid to U.S. defense contractors. That's not a check we're handing Zelensky. Joe Scarborough replies, it's helped U.S. businesses. That's right.
These pigs. These pigs. Oh, my God.
Just a totally mask-off moment here on MSNBC.
Trump about the money we could spend on Ukraine. To Donald Trump about the money we could spend on Ukraine. We're talking $40 billion a year, which is about 5% of the U.S. defense budget. Our defense budget, $800 billion, $40 billion, about 5%. For that amount of money, we are breaking the phalanx of Russia's military. Those are the best dollars we have ever spent in defense. And point two, all that money, that $40 billion a year, that's not a check we're handing Zelensky. All that money is paid to U.S. defense contractors, making our defense industrial base stronger. Russia gets weaker. To Joe's point, final thought, the Russians today are spending 35% of their GDP on defense. That is not a prescription for long-term growth.
Yeah, Willie, this is a generational impact on Russia. And yes, it's helped U.S. businesses.
Yes, it is, in one word, for President Trump, it's leverage. This is terrific leverage. You put a small amount of money in, and you get massive effect. This is a good deal for the United States.
So speaking of the
that is just an unbelievable piece of video in so many ways. First of all, this is a generational impact on Russia. It's a generational impact on Ukraine. This has destroyed the future of Ukraine. Right. Look how many men of childbearing age.
They wiped out a generation of men.
Well, men don't bear children, but you know what I mean. Men of prime reproductive age have been wiped out.
If anyone should know how that whole process works, it should be you, Keith.
Exactly. Yes, I'm an expert in that realm. And this has caused generational damage to Ukraine, and how unfeeling, how sociopathic you must be to say this is a good investment. It's good for U.S. businesses. Now, Chris Hedges wrote about this in America the Farewell Tour, about how the weapons manufacturing base is one of the last remaining manufacturing bases in the U.S., and people have talked like this. I mean, now they have been more open about how, this is a great deal for American workers because it's a great deal for American defense contractors. Now, he refers to $40 billion going out the door per year as being just the check to American defense contractors. But of course, he's not telling you the whole story, because obviously we have not only bolstered Ukraine by writing checks to our defense contractors, but we have provided, as of this graphic here, $57.4 billion in non-defense aid to Ukraine, including $1.7 billion in aid to pay Ukraine's healthcare workers, $3.9 billion in direct budget support, $15 million here for mental health and psychological support services. You might remember this piece. This got a lot of play when it came out. This is an old 60 Minutes report from last year. In Ukraine, U.S. tax dollars are funding more than just military aid, including this. The U.S. government is subsidizing small businesses in Ukraine, including Tatiana Abramova's knitwear company, to keep them afloat. So it's not even
tax
true.
Dollars at work, folks.
Right. So it's not even true. Like, if it were true, it would be sick enough that you're saying, well, this is a great deal for our workers because our defense contractors get rich, and so it's a good jobs program to destroy Ukraine. and risk World War III. That's sick enough. It's not even true what he's saying. It's not even true. Not all of this money is being spent here in the U.S. at our weapons manufacturing factories. We are bleeding money to Ukraine. We are funding their government, essentially. We're paying for their society. So it's not even true on its own terms. And if it were, it would be psychotic.
Yeah, and remember, many of these same Republicans who are telling you we gotta, which is most of them, who are telling you we gotta keep sending money to Ukraine, are the same ones that'll get you all riled up about these privileged college grads getting forgiveness on their student loans, right? People get all angry. Yeah, I didn't go to college. Why should they get? It's all manipulation, man. It's all manipulation. They direct you to get angry about that. Why aren't they telling you, yeah, your money is going to support a knitwear store in Kyiv?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's a lot more ridiculous. There's no possible benefit you're ever going to get out of that.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right. If you free up, that's the theory. If you free up all this money people are making on student loans, they're going to have money to put into the economy, which you might indirectly benefit from if the economy is better because of it. What on earth could this possibly do to benefit an American?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it is just... It's just incredible that they keep this going as long as they have. And, like my jaw dropped when I saw this. And this is obviously a recent piece of video because look at the Chiron. President Biden lifts restrictions on long-range missiles. You're still calling this a good deal for America? After Trump wins in a landslide, you're still calling this a good deal? You still, who is left to absorb this? I know they lost a lot of audience because they went to Mar-a-Lago. But this is, you talk about really scraping the bottom of the shit barrel with a segment like this. The people who are still saying, no, this is some of the best money we could ever spend. And by the way, we're not really spending it because we're giving it to Raytheon, which is based here. Wow.
Yeah. This is why I look at Joe and Mika, and I got to be careful how I say this. I almost got in trouble on the Jimmy Dore show for how I said this. That is where I am most aligned with our communist friends because they have a solution for these kinds of people that I can get behind. Not the Soviet solution. That's a little too extreme. But, you round up Joe and Mika, right? That's right at the beginning of the revolution. You round these people up and you make them do manual labor.
Yeah, they should work. They should work with their hands a little bit. Hey, they should work at a weapons factory. Why don't they go to, why don't they go
work in a factory?
They'll go build missiles.
Look, come on. Whatever your economics, whatever your politics, doesn't that part of the communist program appeal to you? The idea, don't you feel like they have that part right? Like dragging Joe and Mika out of that studio and making them go do some manual labor in a factory for 10, 15 years until they get their mind right.
Hey, we can make it a sweet deal for them. They love these weapons so much they can go build the weapons.
They can go build the weapons and give them a particularly hazardous job.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right, Noah Goop. Morning, Jews. You guys have been killing it. Looking forward to calling on Sunday. I had an interesting interaction with a former IDF guy at my work last week. Oh, interesting.
That does
sound forward to hear.
Oh, and I just want to mention a lot of people in the chat. This was my impression, is that Trump got about 2 million more votes. So where are you getting 2 million less?
I thought he got 2 million less. I thought it was 74.
I was under the impression he got 2 million more.
Well, whatever it is. It's within.
The point remains. He didn't make tremendous inroads with the public, but I'm pretty sure he got 2 million more.
It could be. The California vote tends to come in late, so even though he didn't win California, he's still getting more raw vote out of there. So maybe the tally I looked at most recently was before some of the California stuff came in. But I know it was very much
within the range.
Within the range. Yeah,
it wasn't but the Democrat numbers collapsed. What was it, 15 million?
Oh, it was
from 2020.
Yeah, it was between 10 and 15 million fewer, at least 12 million fewer, I think. Because what was it, 81? So she got 60 something? I forget what it.
65?
No, 65? She didn't get because then he would have won by more. If he got 75 million, because he only won the popular vote. Here, you know what? We got Google here. Why don't we look this up?
Where's Cool Blue when you need him?
Here, 2024 popular vote count. So, okay, so Trump has, yes, okay, so I stand corrected. So Trump has surpassed his 2020 count at 76,722,000. Kamala, yeah, because his popular vote victory is very narrow. Kamala has 74,169,000. So she ended up getting about 7 million fewer than Biden. Not that much fewer than Biden. Yeah. Well, because that California vote
I didn't
comes
realize they were that close in the popular vote. I thought.
Well,
yeah.
Well, that's because she won California by 20
that.
points. So when you win the biggest state in the union by 20 points, that's going to shrink his popular vote number.
Sure,
so yeah, it ends up being pretty close in the popular vote. Which is why I'm saying, like, yeah, MSNBC, their whole worldview was rebuked, but given the stupidity of the audience and given the closeness of the popular vote, like, there's still a market for MSNBC. Like, I don't think they had to go and grovel
Not a
to
big
Trump.
one.
Yeah, I don't think they had to go and grovel. I think those people will come back at some point.
Well, you know what? A lot of these people, we're going to see that in the Jank segment. Hey, we know we're in a different side of this business. I mean, not than Jank. We're in literally the same business. Yeah, hey, anyone with two eyes can tell the money is in going full MAGA. That's where the most money is. Second most is going full pod save.
Right.
Like you do that. Like actually what works best, at least in the podcast sphere, is if you pretend that you have issues with the Democrats while still being a loyal Democrat. Like you're the edgy Democrat.
Right.
That's where you want to be. Pod save. That's where you want to be. You'll once in a while like criticize a Democrat with the pretense being like you're incisive. You see what the problems are. But we got to get behind Harris and whatever the problems are. That's really where the money is. Now, them going to Mar-a-Lago, that was a real miscalculation that they could pull in some of that MAC audience. You're not getting that for fucking Morning Joe. Not in a million years. You've been calling him Hitler for fucking 8 years. They're not going to watch you. Who did you think you were going to bring in with that?
There's ways to make a point. If you want to say, hey, the otherization of Trump has not worked, the denormalization of Trump has not worked, so we have to instead just run a very policy-oriented show and keep this within the realm of like American politics as opposed to trying to create this larger than life Hitlerian figure out of Trump, because that has failed. That has led us to where we are. There's ways to make that point without actually going there and sucking up to him and thinking that, wow, this is going to play great with the audience who we have told for years and years and years and years that this is the guy who's going to bring back 1933 Germany.
Right. And look at who you built your audience on.
Right.
You built your audience on people that actually liked this stupid show you've been doing for years that's all about how insidery you are and how cool and connected to official Washington you are. You pulled in those kinds of people who want to see you scream Hitler every 5 minutes. How did you think they were going to take it when all of a sudden you flipped the script overnight? Yeah, no, we met with him. He cried. We had a reconciliation. Did you think they were going to say, oh, that's nice?
Right.
These people are fucking deranged, man. They're lonely, elderly people who, get their blood worked up. They can't even work the treadmill anymore. The only way they get exercise is by going like this on the couch when you call Trump Hitler. How'd you think they were going to take that?
Exactly. All right. We will move on in just a moment here. We got Crimey Stone. Thanks for the $4.99 super sticker. Joseph Strout is a member for 1 month. Says, good morning, everyone. Thank you. Kuznetsky Bassane, thanks for the $9.99 super sticker. Joseph Stout, thanks for the $10. Says, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Joseph. Appreciate that. Musically Assured Destruction says, don't worry, the mines are safe and effective. Yes. Brad Gilbert, thanks for the $2. But think about all the laundering jobs created. Yes, thank you very much. Okay, folks, it's a morning show. What do you drink in the morning? You drink coffee in the morning. That's right. So how about starting your day with some Rumble's 1775 coffee? Hey, have you heard of the recent advertising scandal? I'll break it down for you. The CEO of Rumble, Chris Pavlovski, recently released an email from Inspire Brands and Dunkin' Donuts, and that email explicitly states that the culture of Rumble is too polarizing for Dunkin' Donuts' taste. So in other words, Dunkin' Donuts has a problem with Rumble's culture and wants nothing to do with it. So the solution is to stop buying products that don't support free speech and start supporting brands that do. And the competing coffee that we should get behind now is Rumble 1775 coffee, well reviewed by the Due Dissidence audience, by the way. Several of you guys have bought it and posted great feedback. For a limited time, Rumble is offering buy 2 bags of coffee and get 1 for free. So go to 1775coffee.com and enter promo code Dunkin, DUNKIN, to get that deal. That's buy 2, get 1 free. It's very well-priced coffee as it is. It comes in 16-ounce bags, which is more bang for your buck than you get from the 10 or the 12-ounce bags at the grocery store. And to try it out, you get a free bag when you buy 2. So that math works out well in your favor. So that's 1775coffee.com, promo code Dunkin. All right, beautiful. All right, okay, let's move on. All right, this is a funny one. Yeah, this is a funny one. This is a really funny one, okay? Now, look, I appreciate a funny piece of video, and this is a funny piece of video here. Piers Morgan brought on the Democrats to sort out why they lost, and Cenk Uygur's on the panel with Allan Lichtman. Of course, you got Harry Siss on there, and Juan Williams from Fox News. And, of course, Allan Lichtman's keys to the election, the predictive model that had not been wrong until 2024. He claims it was, I mean, technically it was wrong in 2000, though not really. When you look at the will of the people, he predicted a Gore win and obviously had people known how to fill out the butterfly ballot. It's pretty obvious that Al Gore would have won that time. But nonetheless, his perfect record was destroyed in 2024, and he is not taking it well. And Cenk, bully that he is, just loves the opportunity to pour salt in his wounds. And so this is pretty funny stuff. We'll have to take a look.
Don't blame the voters. I think, look, we could get into this discussion, but one, I think you're blaming the voters. I think that's a terrible idea. And look, I debated Professor Lichtman before. I told him his theories about the keys were absurd. I was right. He was wrong. I said he'd lose his keys.
No, you were
Couldn't
not
find
right,
him
and
before
I
the
was
election.
not wrong, and that's a cheap shot, and I won't stand for it.
Well, who won, brother?
You should not be
Who
taking
won?
cheap
Who
shots
won?
at me.
Who
You
won?
want to make your
You
point,
live
make your
in a
point.
total
Don't make it
world of
personal.
denial.
I read your own followers.
I could just say it's a cheap shot. I mean, he was wrong. I mean, it's not a cheap shot.
Right.
That's a cheap shot.
Well, this is really a drowning man watching his whole reputation go up in flames.
Yeah, because he was emphatic that Kamala would win.
I know.
Yeah, he was emphatic. Like, we were not emphatic. We basically bet on a certain turnout model that didn't come to be. This guy has his 13 keys.
As someone, this is where I have to blame myself. As someone with 3 baby mamas, I should have known women don't want abortion as much as advertised.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's on you. That's on you. But no, this guy was emphatic that she would win. And so, yeah, not taking this well. All right, we will let this play.
Shots at me.
Who
You
won?
want to make your
You
point,
live
make your
in a
point.
total
Don't make it
world of
personal.
denial.
I read your own followers' comments, and they all trashed you, every one of them, and supported me.
Yeah,
so
right,
quiet with
right.
your personal
Yeah,
attacks.
come find out again.
Make whatever
Okay.
point you want.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't
Look,
make
you
it personal.
You don't know anything. You don't know
You
anything.
attacked me
You
personally.
You're so deluded.
Oh, right. I've only been a professor for 51 years.
On this program,
published
I've never been
13
able
books.
to finish a
How
thought.
many books have you published?
Well, he publishes books when he runs for office. I mean, I don't know if you knew that about it. Cenk likes to publish a book when he decides to run for Congress or run for president.
That nobody buys.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So he has published a couple of books. I'm sure they're not as scholarly as yours.
And I'm pretty sure the phrenologists used to publish books too.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of people publish books. A lot of people publish books that turn out to be bullshit.
Because you're personally attacking me again. Say whatever you want, but I'm not going to stand for
brother,
personal
you got it
attacks.
wrong.
Say
you were
whatever you want.
preposterously and stupidly wrong. So, okay, all right. Can I just finish a
call me
goddamn thought
stupid.
ever on this show?
No, not if you're
Okay,
personally
well,
I
you proved
admitted
it.
I was wrong. I don't need you to call me stupid.
Okay.
Can I just say,
What
it's
kind
great
of
to see
nonsense
you
is that?
Democrats
Yeah, I
all
know.
getting
Who
along
taught
so
you
well.
manners?
It's lovely to
You
see a
need one. Can I
post-election
finish a
harmony as you all
goddamn
come
point?
together again.
Hey, Alan,
right now.
Hey, Allan, you deserve a tall glass of shut-up juice, so can you just shut up for a second and let someone who knows what they're doing...
You're so right, Piers.
You're so right. We're so unified right now.
You want, I will not sit here and stand for personal attacks, for blasphemy against me. You don't need to do that. You don't
blasphemy against you. Who the hell are you? Are you Jesus Christ, you loser? Okay, can I just give the correct answer for once?
You committed blasphemy against me. That's my favorite. You've committed blasphemy against me. You know, somebody tweeted this at us, and they replied to this line about blasphemy against me as being related to the segment that we did in our last show about the educated class feeling entitled to this certain, degree of adoration and deference. Right. Exactly. That to speak out against me is you're a blasphemer. You've blasphemed against me.
So how do you, why would that word even occur to you to use?
Blasphemy.
Don't you know you're going to make a complete fool out of yourself saying something like that?
Well, it's just it's so pompous. Wow. And the thing about it is, the thing that's hilarious is, because we've become accustomed to Jank's personality style over the years. He takes no opportunity to de-escalate at all. He just keeps poking him harder and harder. You were stupidly wrong. Hey, why don't you have a glass of shut up juice? Oh, blasphemy. Who are you? Are you Jesus Christ?
It's lovely to see a post-election harmony as you all come together again.
We're just one right now. Hey, Allan, you deserve a tall glass of shut-up juice, so can you just shut up for a second?
Now, he knows the guy is touchy. He knows the guy is very sensitive to being talked to in that way, as he's just demonstrated over the last minute. And he just keeps going. Hey, have a glass of shut-up juice.
Someone who knows what they're doing.
You're so right, Piers. You're so right. We're so unified right now.
I will not sit here and stand for personal attacks, for blasphemy against me. You don't need to do that.
Blasphemy against you? Who the hell are you? Are you Jesus Christ, you loser? Okay, can I just give the correct answer for once?
Even Sisson like that. I got to start using that from now on. In certain occasions, committed blasphemy against me.
What happened? What happened? The DNC was paying 2 little bitches. What happened to the other little bitch?
Yeah, I don't know where
you only ever see him now.
Yeah. Sisson was the more talented of the two, I guess. He gets the most press now. But yeah, even Sisson liked that one. Even Sisson could laugh as devastated.
The other one
as
decided he wants to get laid at college.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, this guy, look, I mean, he staked his entire career, his entire reputation on these keys.
Right.
And now this is the end. He's never going to be taken seriously again. At that point, you know what, man? You should probably just lay low. The best thing he could do for narrative management is lay low and come out very humbly in a couple of years with a rejiggered model.
I mean, what you could have just said, I mean, what really dug him into the hole is the fact that he was so confident and so emphatic that his system was so infallible. What you could have said was, hey, these are my models. They've been right every time. Based on these models, she's going to win. This is a particularly unpredictable race, given that we've had 2 completely different turnout models show up over the past, 6 years, from the 2016 to the 2018 to the 2020 to the 22. Right. So the model says this, but this is a time where the model could be wrong because it's a very unpredictable race. At that point, you can't really trash him too hard. If that were what he was saying. That's not what he was saying. And now the level of offense, the lack of humility, yes, it is reflective. I'm a professor for 51 years. I've published 13 books. How dare you call me stupid, even though I was emphatic in my prediction that turned out to be completely wrong. Yeah, that's where you get that from.
Which again, to make the point that you've published books, that's if you know anything about the history of science, that's why I mentioned phrenologists. I mean, all the junk science that's ever been done produced books.
Right.
Wait, what do you think? They just told people about it?
Right.
That's what you do. You publish, right? They published articles. They published books. What does that mean? Okay, so your books can now be added to the annals of junk science. And that is what he's desperately trying to avoid. He's trying to fight for control of this narrative, but you can't. You can't. You stuck your neck out like that, as you say, if you had more humility. Yeah, this is a really weird race, so I don't even know how applicable this is to this race, because this is just not a normal election. That would have been a completely reasonable thing to say.
Yes. I mean, that's why I was as uncertain as I was, because it was just not clear to me which electorate would show up.
Sure.
There was just no way I could see that. Now, maybe
Look,
if I were more astute, maybe I could have, but that's just something you kind of live with. But to be so emphatic that no, she must, and look, he was biased. He hated Trump.
That was clearly part of it.
He would make his vitriol for Trump known every time he was interviewed.
He was
about
taking
this.
great joy in that prediction. And right there, you're in a danger zone as an academic.
Right, exactly. Whereas, people who are just moron as brokers trying to call it as honestly as they see it are not going to infuse that level of partisanship with their quote-unquote prediction, right?
Well, there were data points coming from experts and pollsters that indicated that the 2022 electorate was going to be the electorate.
Yeah.
And they were all fucking wrong. Seltzer retired now.
Right.
Here's a poll that's never been wrong like one time. One time they were wrong. Completely wrong. Guys like this, who had a sterling record, coming out so emphatically, oh yeah, it's going to be Harris. So every indication from those sources was that, yeah, it's going to look like 2022. Where, you're saying it's going to be a red wave, but it's not, and because the Roe-Dobbs decision is so potent. And this is just one more case where establishment authority has collapsed. Even Jon Stewart closed out his monologue with pollsters. I don't want to hear from you guys again. And I think everyone feels that way. Like after this, I always took polls with a grain of salt. Now, I'd be very hesitant to cite polling as evidence for anything after this.
Well, I mean, if you look at the final results, the polls were almost entirely correct within the margin of error. They were just all wrong in the same direction. The margin of error was all to one side. So it's not that the data itself was well, that one poll was obviously wrong. That was an outlier, and that looked like an outlier. I didn't give Kamala Iowa in my map. I thought some of the cross sections of that poll were indicative of an overall dynamic within the electorate that I thought may have been predictive, and turns out they weren't. But I never thought Iowa would win. But no, the polls in the swing states were all within the margin of error. They were just all off in one direction because Trump got the turnout that he needed to outperform the polls, and Kamala didn't. And I thought in the run-up to the election that could have gone either way. And the reason I gave a slight edge to Kamala is because I remember in 2022, in the fall of that year, heading up to the midterms, not being able to carry on a conversation with a person without them mentioning how much shit costs and how furious they were over the price of groceries, the price of gas. No. And that did not result in a red wave. So I'm like, if that white hot fury over a very fresh and raw surge in inflation did not generate the turnout, I don't think there's a greater than 50-50 chance it will this time. I said all along, I said I could be wrong. It might very well be that it will, and turns out it was. And so it's as simple as that.
It's because Trump is a poet and a warrior in the classic sense. He wasn't on the ballot in 2022.
Right.
He worked his, magic gyrations on his base, and they came out.
Right. And in 2022, obviously,
he's the Elvis of politics, man.
Well, yeah. No, there's a certain part of that, absolutely, that he drives turnout. And there's also another part of it where his messengers in 2022 were the most bumbling, incompetent fools you could possibly put on the stage.
Now they're all in the cabinet.
Herschel Walker. Yeah, now they're all getting jobs anyway. Good for them. But yeah, I mean,
Herschel Walker is going to be put in charge of the Atomic Energy Agency any day now.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right. Hey, Dan Richmond is in the Rumble chat. Dan Richmond also has a podcast called the Heeb and Goy podcast. You can find him on YouTube, Heeb and Goy, A-N-D, not the ampersand. If you want some escapist, apolitical fun about adult milk drinkers and other quirks of life that Dan finds to be insufferable, you can go and watch his show at the Heeb and Goy Show on YouTube. You can also go to heebandgoy.com. Once again, that's A-N-D. The ampersand is just for the logo, folks. heebandgoy.com, where you can subscribe to the audio podcast. They have an RSS feed, so it's available on every podcast player. And obviously, you can subscribe to their YouTube channel. I'm a viewer of their show. I find it to be very fun and easy listening. They have essentially the same sense of humor as we do, just without talk of genocide and, World War III. Although Dan has actually started, sorry I never got back to you via email, Dan. I meant to. It's just everything piled up. But Dan actually started a political podcast, a local politics show, which I will bring up the name of later in the show on the Rumble Switch. I'll look it up. But I remembered just now I wanted to plug that as well. So I will have that guy for you guys on the Rumble side. But the product that he has partnered with us to promote is a great product in and of itself. The Heeb and Goy Show, available on YouTube and your favorite podcast player. All righty. Let's take a couple Rumble rants here. My suggestion, Noah Goop, for Trump's cabinet picks, Daryl Cooper as press secretary, Tucker Carlson's poltergeist for defense secretary, Rabbi Shmuley for education. There you go. That's funny.
Well, they're starting a new department of kosher sex toys for Shmuley.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Him and his daughter are going to run it. It's not going to be creepy at all.
Yeah. In 2020, Biden received $81 million to Trump's $74 million, according to Wikipedia. Here in 2024, and with 98.8% in, Trump has 76.7, Harris 74.1. Thanks, Cool Blue, with the numbers. Boom, beautiful. Excuse me, Noah Goop. Mordor has the right to defend itself, and how it does so matters. Kamala Harris, yes, how it does so matters. I like that. The Milford, thanks for the $10. Is Vinay Prasad on your radar? Yes, he is. I've heard of Vinay. Sane voice during the pandemic. Recent episode of the VPZD podcast tackles the Trump appointees from DR's perspective. He seems somewhat red-pilled. Possible guest? Yeah, for sure. We have a list. That we're going through. We're going to start interviews up again next week. So that'll be great. Don't we spend more than 35% on GDP on defense? I don't know what the exact percentage is, but it is a great number. Yes, it is a big number, obviously. Thank you, Biden. Appreciate that. And let's take a look here. Foment dissident, thinking of a service where non-Jews do tasks for Jewish folks that observe Shabbat. Going to call it Jews and Rentiles. There you go. Thank you. That's funny. Pete Sweet, Biden, the crypt keeper, one foot in the grave, another on banana peel, ready to push the nuclear button before he closes lid on his and everyone's coffin. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, we will move on here. So we're going to now do some cabinet picks, folks. Do some cabinet picks. We are going to be switching to Rumble fairly soon after two of these picks. We have a lot on Rumble today. We're going to be doing the Linda McMahon stuff on Rumble since we could show some WWE wrestling clips, or WWF, whatever the fuck it was back then. And then we have the Nancy Mace versus Sarah McBride and J.K. Rowling versus John Oliver. So we have 3 segments on Rumble, quite a bit. So make sure you join us. We will give you the heads up and the link and everything as that moment approaches. But we are getting there slowly but surely.
A trans with a Schmendrick swinging it in a girl's bathroom.
Exactly. Yes, we'll have some fun with the soundboard on that one as well. All right. Trump made another round of cabinet picks over these past couple of days. Trump picks Cantor Fitzgerald CEO Howard Lutnick to be Commerce Secretary. President-elect Donald Trump said Tuesday that he will nominate key transition advisor and billionaire financial services executive Howard Lutnick to lead the Commerce Department. He will lead our tariff and trade agenda with additional direct responsibility for the Office of the United States Trade Representative, Trump said in a statement announcing the pick. The Cantor Fitzgerald CEO has led and been the public face of Trump's transition. So he has had a say in who else has gotten jobs, which more on that a little bit later. It's not clear yet what his selection for a cabinet post would mean for his role in the transition going forward. As co-chair of Trump's transition, Lutnick has been an outspoken advocate for his agenda, including explaining how the president-elect plans to use tariffs once in office. Lutnick is the CEO and chairman of the financial services titan Cantor Fitzgerald. The Commerce Department will play a key role in executing some of Trump's proposed tariffs on goods imported into the United States. So here he is giving a version of economic history, shall we say, at the Madison Square Garden rally.
Was America great? At the turn of the century, our economy was rocking. This is 1900, 125 years ago. We had no income tax. And all we had was tariffs.
So what that means for the people in the audience is that billionaires like him don't pay an income tax.
Yep.
Neither do you. But of course, look how many of you there are, and there's only one of him in this room. That tax gets passed along to all of you if you use tariffs as a substitute for the income tax.
Right.
And even
It's a
Republicans are
regressive
saying
tax.
that's regressive. Yes.
And what he's not telling you is we have a name for this period. It's called the Gilded Age.
Right.
And it's a time that is characterized by grotesque wealth inequality, very much like our own. So if, as he's tacitly suggesting here, this would create an economy that works better for average working people, then why was there such grotesque wealth inequality during this period? Because if you don't use the tax system to restrain guys like this, they're going to accumulate so much capital. And with that capital, they're going to accumulate so much power, they're going to crush you. Now, we've kind of come back to the same place. Now, that really starts with Reagan's tax cuts on the wealthy. That's when they start once again, after a long period of, it's not that you ever had a time where rich people didn't have the ear of power, but there was a counterbalance from the middle class, which is now devastated, and from workers who were represented through their unions. Once Reagan instituted those tax cuts, the wealth got funneled to the top and got translated into political power, so that now we're back very much to the circumstances of the Gilded Age.
That's right. That's right. All right,
So now what he's describing is, you know what? What's been going on since Reagan? Let's just go all the way with it. Right. Let's just have no taxes on guys like me. No, it'll be good for you. Trust me.
All we had was tariffs. And we had so much money that we had the greatest businessmen
right.
of America
People like
get
you
together
had
to try
so
to
much
figure
money.
out how to spend it. That's who we
people
were
like
then.
J.P. Morgan.
But then
Yes,
we had
that's
World
true.
War I, and we had World War II. And we felt we had a duty to rebuild the rest of the world.
Uh-huh.
So here's what we did. We took down our protection. We took down our tariffs. And we turned instead and we taxed Americans so that we could export the power of our economy and save the rest of the world, which we did.
Okay.
Yeah, this is complete and total bullshit, and this is where this comes in, if this is a good juncture. All right, so I would highly recommend this. A lot of us absorb this idea, probably not our audience, smarter than the average bear, but the idea that the Marshall Plan was this idealistic gesture. No, well, it's hard to have a capitalist economy and a manufacturing base when you have no one to sell your goods to. So we took advantage of the situation to expand our markets and to make the dollar the reserve currency that these countries we were rebuilding would be buying our goods in.
And
So
one just very brief thing. Sorry, I'm not going to derail this. But it was also a plan to stop the spread of communism. We wanted to make sure that communism did not expand past the Iron Curtain. And since a lot of these European economies were devastated, we were very afraid that that's the direction we would go if we didn't boost them. So we needed to save capitalism using our socialism so that they didn't go communist.
Well, and, also Nazis that we left behind working for our intelligence services. So for the dollar to be the apple of everyone's eye at the fixed exchange rates, the Bretton Woods system guaranteed, what he's talking about is at this time, these currencies were pegged to the value of the dollar, which in turn was pegged to the value of gold, which was denominated in dollars, very much like the petrodollar today. America had to be a surplus amassing country, meaning it had to sell more goods and services to the rest of the world than it imported. Of course, selling goods to the Europeans and Japanese was more than just a bonus outcome. It was how the technostructure, that's how he describes kind of the PMC run, what we would call technocracy that comes in with the New Deal. He calls it the technostructure. Would secure for itself the vast new markets it needed to sustain its industries and keep its economy growing. But the whole system also relied on this surplus integrally, for it was what ensured that the dollars printed by the Federal Reserve, America's central bank, and given to the Europeans and to the Japanese, either as loans or aid, would ultimately find their way back to the United States in return for U.S. goods. With every Boeing jet or General Electric washing machine sold to the Europeans, a bundle of dollars would head back across the Atlantic. And as long as migratory dollars were gravitating back home, the dollar would remain a steal at the given exchange rate, guaranteeing that the Germans, the British, the French, the Japanese, even the Greeks wanted to get many more dollars for their funny money than the authorities allowed them at the official exchange rates. As long as America was the major surplus nation, Bretton Woods was safe as houses. And that's why by the late 1960s, the Bretton Woods system was dead in the water. And he gets into really explaining how all of this is tied to why wages have been stagnant since Nixon went off the gold standard. He explains, okay, so we no longer had a trade surplus, we had a trade deficit. So how do you keep these dollars coming back to the United States when German manufacturing, Japanese manufacturing now exceeds ours in efficiency and profitability? Well, to make our corporations so profitable that these dollars keep coming back, only now they come back to Wall Street. They don't come in the form of direct investment. Well, you have to make our corporations profitable on another basis by cutting wages.
Right.
So highly recommend. And what he's telling you is total bullshit.
All right. Well, he finishes up.
Now let me ask you a question. What decade should that have ended?
By that, he means this era of altruism where we, out of the kindness of our hearts, rebuilt Europe.
Should it have ended in the 80s? The 90s? 2000? What in the world are we doing? We're letting the rest of the world eat our lunch. And it is time to make America great again.
This guy, I'm sorry, man. I mean, anyone who thinks Trump is coming in to help you, look at this guy. You think this guy gives a fuck about you? You think he cares about you? He's coming from Cantor Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
Does that look like fighting the hedge funds, fighting Wall Street to you? He's gonna come in and he's gonna do what's good for him and its class. It's Reaganomics on steroids.
Yes. So much so that some Republicans are leery of trying to pay for tax cuts with Trump's tariffs. So Semaphore reports Donald Trump may be interested in using steep new tariffs to pay for tax cuts next year, an idea that would force Congress to vote on his aggressive trade agenda. Republican lawmakers, however, are far from sold. Some are already panning the prospect. I don't like tariffs. Number one, I think the consumer pays them, so they're regressive. They're a sales tax, basically. Kentucky Senator Rand Paul told Semaphore. Now, if your economic theory is too regressive for Rand Paul, you may want to think twice about it. Adding that he'd still listen to the idea, even though I kind of doubt tariffs would make it into a GOP tax bill. As Republicans prepare to take control of both chambers of Congress in January, they're weighing whether to formalize Trump's tariff regime as part of a bill that would extend tax cuts they passed during his first term. The decision pits the party's free trade orthodoxy against its new populist impulses under the president-elect, who has floated a 10% across-the-board tariff and more targeted tariffs on everything from Chinese goods to John Deere tractors. Okay, I just have to quibble slightly. There's nothing populist about using tariffs to finance tax cuts for the rich. If you're going to use tariffs to finance a popular program, that's one thing. You can have that conversation in addition to income taxes on rich people. You're talking about doing away with taxes for rich people and paying for that with tariffs. That's not populist at all. That's anti-populist. You are making the many bear the cost of a tax cut for the rich. There's nothing populist about that. Trump's broad tariffs could bring in trillions of dollars to help extend the tax cuts and potentially pay for some of the many new tax promises he made during the campaign. But such sweeping tariffs also would raise consumer prices while possibly failing to raise the revenue Republicans would need in order to vote for new levies on foreign goods, which explains why senior members of the party are treading very carefully around the idea of paying for tax cuts with tariffs. Again, these tariffs are being floated to replace taxes for people like Howard Lutnick. That's what they're being proposed to pay for. Senator Mike Crapo, that's a great name. I wonder how impressive. You know, he must be a talented politician to actually win a Senate seat with a name like Crapo. Mike Crapo from Idaho, the incoming Finance Committee chairman, says he's not working on any such proposal right now. He should run for president. I mean, if he's talented enough to get elected with a name like Crapo, he must be pretty good. Incoming Senate GOP leader John Thune said it's a novel idea to raise revenue for tax cuts, but only one of many options. The question is, what are the other implications of doing that? Don't forget, these are the same people who say we can't raise the minimum wage because it's going to drive up costs. These people are literally willing to implement a 10% sales tax on everyone to pay for tax cuts for the rich. But the minimum wage, no, that'll drive prices up too much. Again.
Well, and this is how abstract and Wall Street based the economy is. That's why they don't care about the fact that at that point, how are consumers going to buy goods?
Right.
It's all just a Wall Street game at this point. Why is Bitcoin worth anything? Much less approaching $100,000, because the whole market is speculative. It's all conceptual. It's like the modern art stock market.
Yeah,
it's worth
like
what you think it's worth.
To the wall.
Yeah, it's meaningless. I sent that to Keaton. We might do that story on Sunday because it's such an extreme example of well, the theory behind Reaganomics and this newfangled version of what is essentially Reaganomics is the richer you make these guys, the better for you. Well, look at how they spend that money. $1 million for a banana taped to a wall. That's what they spend that money on. That's where your money's going. It's not going into creating new jobs.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Some Republicans said tariffs can be used constructively to push foreign countries on specific policy issues, but that Congress should not use them as a piggy bank. Okay, so this is another sort of facet of the Howard Lutnick story, because this was put out by Jewish Insider on November 4th, 2024. So this was before Donald Trump won a second term, but Howard Lutnick, the pro-Israel champion, leading Trump's transition team. So he was tasked with filling out the cabinet, or at least, playing a large role in advising Trump on who to pick for certain posts, even before Trump won. And so now we're going to get some insight into who he is and who is running the Trump transition team. And it'll all make sense. It'll all make pretty good sense to you by the time we are done with this. This is not long, but it is revealing. In recent months, Howard Lutnick, the billionaire financial executive, has emerged as one of former President Donald Trump's top boosters and closest advisors. He has helped corral support among Wall Street donors, appeared frequently on cable news to promote the campaign, and earned a leading role on the transition team, where as co-chair, he has been tasked with overseeing personnel for a potential second Trump administration. Lutnick, 63, maintained a lower political profile before the election and contributed to both parties. He has cited a range of reasons for more actively supporting Trump, a longtime friend, including his policies on immigration, cryptocurrency, and tariffs on imported goods, an unusual preference for a Wall Street veteran who has identified as a fiscal conservative. But the Jewish Republican has also indicated that his long-standing commitment to Israel's security is one of the top reasons he is now so enthusiastically aligning with Trump, particularly after Hamas's October 7th attacks, which the former president has repeatedly claimed would never have happened if he had won a second term. Lutnick has said that his decision to become more engaged in Trump's re-election crystallized for him in the immediate aftermath of the attacks. He had clear moral clarity when it came to Israel and what happened and the way that he thought about what happened, Lutnick explained in an interview with the Philadelphia Inquirer last month. That was huge to me. While Lutnick donated to Vice President Kamala Harris's 2016 Senate campaign, he attributed the contribution to his wife, noting that she had since moved over to Donald Trump, which is unusual for her because she says Israel is her number one policy, he said in an interview with Bloomberg this summer. The former president literally sat down with my wife and said, "I will be the best president for Israel. I will protect Israel and take care of them," Lutnick recounted. So even in my house, we have unanimity around Donald Trump. Michael Tracy, who has been very, very good at finding receipts as these Trump cabinet appointees come in. Yeah. Here he is. He plucked this one out of the MSG rally. Trump's new pick for Commerce Secretary literally screamed at the pre-election Madison Square Garden rally that the foremost reason to elect Trump was that we must crush jihad.
So the first thing, we must elect Donald J. Trump president because we must crush jihad.
All right, now this is even now you talk about a bitch. You talk about making a bitch of himself. Michael Tracy tweets out here, Trump and his transition chairman Howard Lutnick commemorated October 7th, this is the one-year anniversary of the attack, by paying homage at the tomb of Rabbi Schneerson, the leader of the Shabbat movement, who died in 1994. Yeah, I don't get the pronunciation right on those. I didn't go to Hebrew school like you do. How do you say it?
Briefly. Chabad.
Chabad. Sorry. I apologize.
Yeah.
I'm catching a little bit of a cold for my son, so that would have been hard anyway. Who died in 1994 and is still regarded by many of his followers as the Messiah. So, yeah, there's this weird cult of Rabbi Schneerson, yeah. And this is how Trump spent the day commemorating the October 7th attacks. Here's some video of this event. Now, nothing much is said here, but there's Lutnick to Trump's left, our right. And there's Trump pretending to be very affected by what's going on here. Reading something. Pretend to care. Now, see, this is why you really have to be cucked to do this. Because, and this is what, like, okay, so...
Cat was named Vagina.
Whatever that is. Okay.
Fucking superstitious nonsense.
Yeah, whatever bullshit they're making them do. Okay, so look, there is no doubt in my mind that Howard Lutnick knows that Donald Trump couldn't give a shit about any of this. Like, there's nothing Trump could care less about than whatever he's pretending is this solemn occasion here. Mm-hmm. Howard Lutnick knows he's putting Trump through a humiliation ritual. He knows that Trump coming here and going through these motions is a way of Trump telling him, I am in your pocket. I will do what you want. I am working for you. That's what this is. That's clearly what this is. I mean, Donald Trump gives a shit about this. Donald Trump knows a lick about this. Of course not. It's ridiculous. They put him through this as a means of expressing fealty to the Israel cause. And what has happened? How have his cabinet picks shaped up? Exactly as you would predict, given this level of bitchery on display from Donald Trump in this video here. So, anything to add before we continue? We only got one more piece. Anya Parampil, it's clear that Howard Lutnick and Miriam Adelson have more influence over Trump's cabinet picks than anyone else, even Don Jr., and they are making their selections in the interest of Israel, not the United States. How does it feel, Americans? Sorry, that's the last exhibit. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is why, predictably, you have a lot of people who jumped right on board when people like us would criticize people who supported certain policies that they thought Harris would institute and were willing to accept a genocide in exchange. And yet you're seeing a lot of people who love that critique who are essentially doing that now. As I've said, the MAGA association with Zionism, that is really from the top. That is not my experience of actual people who supported Donald Trump. Very, very few have I ever encountered who supported this, who didn't find this as repulsive as we do. Okay, so are you going to do what those Harris supporters did? Are you going to decide, well, you know what? I'm less worried today about them Child Protective Services turning my son into a girl than I was yesterday. So, what's a little genocide? Are you going to do that? You're going to do that? Or are you, as we have pointed out, Trump is sensitive to his popularity. Not going to listen. Not going to listen to us. A couple lefties. It's up to you. It's on you guys, man. You got to say something about this. Don't tell me you like this. And don't tell me that Trump is a strong leader. He is not a strong leader. He is. It was a problem when Citibank picked Obama's cabinet, right? Everybody talked about it. Certainly MAGA folks who were aware of it have talked about that for years, as have we. You don't think Miriam Adelson picked his cabinet? Look at how this cabinet is shaping up. You don't think he's being told what to do?
And this guy, Howard Lutnick. He's the head of the transition team.
You're talking about a loony cult within Judaism that believes that this Rebbe was the Messiah.
Yeah.
Which, now he's dead. It's kind of hard to maintain that, but they do. You go out there to Crown Heights. I know where this is. They preserve his house.
He spent 35 years in the ground before he was resurrected.
Right. He's no, because I went over there because somebody asked me. Generally, I would not do a tour that I'm going to rarely get asked to do because it's a lot of research to put together a tour. But somebody asked me to do a tour of Hasidic Brooklyn. And I was like, man, that's so weird. That's such a weird subject. I'll do it because I'm interested enough
just to have the knowledge
research.
anyway. Right.
So one of these guys saw me walking around with a notebook and asked me what I was doing. I told him. He took me for a whole behind the scenes tour into the Rebbe's house. He took me all over the area, pointing out the different sites that are significant to them.
Down into the tunnels.
Down into the tunnels. I'm not allowed to talk about that. He told me that's only for the VIP tours.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Down into the tunnel. No. The place where you saw in that video, I've been there. I've been in that room where the tunnels are. That's like medieval. You go in that room and it's all the rabbinical students debating all day.
Right.
So you go in there, it's just the echoes of people debating Talmud. And debating the Torah. Hundreds of people just debating.
Right.
But yeah, this is your president, your strong leader. He's bending the knee to a nutty cult within Judaism.
Yeah. And the one thing
this
I'll add
isn't
to
even
this,
like mainstream Judaism. This is
of course.
weird cultish sect within Judaism.
Yeah, and just to what you said before, in terms of, exchanging a policy aim for it, basically tolerating a genocide so you get a certain policy aim of yours satisfied. This formulation, and we've seen a lot of people make it, that, well, the Palestinians are just screwed anyway, no matter who wins. So we may as well vote on other matters, or we may as well support or not support candidates based on other things. It is exactly that formulation that led to genocide. It is exactly that indifference to the oppression of the Palestinian people that led to this disaster right now. It's that. It's saying, well, either way, we're just going to take as a given that their fate is sealed and that they were born to suffer and that through accident of birth inside an open-air concentration camp, these people are doomed to a lifetime of suffering. That is what led to this. That is what led to this. And that, in my opinion, has to stop. And it stops when it comes to evaluating Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. It stops when it comes to evaluating Trump. Like, it's the same thing.
Of course.
It's the same
of course.
principle
And
in both directions.
If you're going to run around being like, oh, yeah, look at Elon and Vivek. They're going to own the deep state. And you got nothing to say about this? I'm sorry, man. I didn't respect that from the Harris people. I don't respect that from MAGA people. I don't respect that from anybody. Okay, your man is in now. Speak out.
Right.
Try to have some influence.
Exactly. The Raging D-Head says, any bets on who took Harry home? Thank you. Appreciate that. I would say Juan Williams, probably. He had the most chill vibes of that crowd by far. Sparky, thanks for the $10. 2022 was a suspicious election in specific race. Also, the abortion issue was a greater factor than in 24 because how overturning of Roe versus Wade would shake out was unknown, frightening women. That is true, Sparky. Thank you. Jameson Doan, thanks for the $5. Trump should pick John Kiriakou for CIA director. In all seriousness, though, you guys should have John on to talk about his new show. Oh, he has a new show? I didn't know that.
Does he?
Yeah, that would be interesting.
We're connected on Facebook, actually.
Yeah, Russ and John are Facebook friends somehow. But yeah, I'll look that up. I didn't know he had a new show. Todd S., thanks for the $5. 1900 was before the Fed creation, before 2 world wars, before ditching the gold standard, before globalization, et cetera, et cetera. They simply won't work. Thank you, Todd. DC, thanks for the $2. Home Depot CEO, tariffs costs will pass to consumers. Yes. RBGH fam, thanks for the $5. Tariffs are a tool to get others to live theirs and for national security, bullets, planes, meds, food. Is it rhetorical gamesmanship or just a bad idea? Like I said, if you were going to implement tariffs with the goal of raising a specific amount of revenue for a specific project, okay, you can have that conversation. Of course, before you get to that point, you have to look at, okay, well, what resources do we already have that are being spent on, things like World War III and genocide? So I'm not saying that would get you to a point where you would sign off on them. I'm saying that's where the conversation could begin if you actually laid out what you want these tariffs for. They're telling you they want the tariffs to finance tax cuts for the rich. Well, that's a non-starter. I mean, that's a non-starter. At that point, the conversation's over.
Also, hey, and yes, there are reasons you might want to bring in tariffs. But I am old enough to remember when a TV was expensive. Mm-hmm. And if I know my Americans, they ain't going to like that.
Right.
They ain't going to like that. You can get a nice flat screen TV really for pretty cheap at this point. They bring in those kinds of tariffs and you go back to what it used to cost to buy like a Zenith relative to wages. Zenith, I think, was like $400 in the 70s.
Right.
You get a nice flat screen TV now for that. And obviously with inflation, $400 is not what it was then.
Right.
You go back to what? You got to pay $3,000 for a flat screen. People are not going to be happy.
That's true. All right. Hillary Hinton, MSNBC has a morning show with one host who probably offed his aide, another who is the daughter of the dude who created Al-Qaeda. It's enough to make you chew off your own fucking foot. Thank you for that very much. Nina Kant, the problem is these people have too much time on their hands and not worried about rent and how they're going to feed their family. Not much time to control the entire world when you have real needs. Thank you, Nina. Appreciate that very much. All right. Okay, let's go to Dr. Oz. Okay, so this is our final segment of the YouTube portion of the show. We are switching to Rumble after this segment. So if you want to get a head start, you can head over there now. DoDissidents.com/Rumble takes you to this live stream. Takes you to this live stream. So dudissidents.com/rumble. We'll see you guys over there after this segment. So go ahead.
Okay. Where'd you put it?
It's
You
right
got to throw these things up because I don't know where you put them. All right. So, Oprah has given us some really outstanding people. She's really been connected to some incredible human beings, including P. Diddy, currently in prison awaiting trial, Harvey Weinstein, currently incarcerated, Russell Simmons. But for this particular cabinet pick, I think Trump's people said, we have enough people accused of rape and sexual assault, so let's go for one of the Oprah people without any rape accusations against him. So they went with Oz. Oz is one of the few people ever to associate with Oprah Winfrey not credibly accused of rape yet. Yet. So in case you don't remember, Oz was running against John Fetterman at a time when Fetterman really could not form a coherent sentence. We have a little bit of audio from that period. Maybe Keaton can find it. But you might remember that Oz went ahead and did this stunning paean to the working man, known as "O crudité, alas, where art thou?"
Thought I'd do some grocery shopping. I'm at Wegner's, and my wife wants some vegetables for crudité, right? So here's a broccoli. That's $2. Not a ton of broccoli there. Here's some asparagus. That's $4. Yep. And carrots. That's $4 more. That's $10 of vegetables there. And then we need some guacamole. That's $4 more.
Yeah, you don't need guacamole for
She
crudité.
loves salsa. Yeah,
I don't even need
salsa there.
crudité.
That's what everybody
$6.
says. Yeah.
Must be a shortage of salsa. Guys, that's $20 for crudité, and this doesn't include the tequila. I mean, that's outrageous.
Tequila.
We got Joe Biden to thank for this.
Okay, just very, very quick. I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to labor this. I'm not going to slow the segment down, but this was 2022. This was water cooler conversation was the cost of goods, and it didn't affect the vote that much. Anyway, go ahead.
Yes. Well, in this particular case, it may be because he chose to talk about crudité as if the average American even knows what that means, much less is running around worrying about the price of preparing it.
And you know what Americans who do their own grocery shopping also do is they get a shopping cart when they go through the store.
They get a shopping cart. So
one way to say, hey, this is just a publicity stunt is to walk through a grocery store without a shopping cart.
So as promised, we do have Fetterman's response.
Oh, you found it. I couldn't find it.
And that, hey, who could argue with that?
Right.
And that was it. That was enough to put Fetterman over the top.
Yep. He closes
strong.
Yeah,
putting on the Ritz. Well, people interpreted that to mean Ritz crackers, so they took it as a kind of class contradict. Like, I'm not a crudité guy, I'm a Ritz cracker
guy. Right.
That was how they interpreted it. So Trump has nominated Dr. Oz, as you probably heard. The selection of Dr. Oz, who lost to John Fetterman in 2022 in a race to represent Pennsylvania in the Senate, was a surprise to many close watchers of the agency. And by surprise, they meant screaming and weeping in the hallways. Even in a health department that could be led by another unconventional pick, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. It also continued a trend of Mr. Trump selecting television personalities to oversee federal agencies. His candidates to run the defense and transportation departments have been working for Fox News and Fox Business. Now, let me just make something clear. When I say this is the idiocracy cabinet, it's not because I'm a snob. I would be very happy to see a union rep made the Treasury Secretary. Quite the opposite. I would love to see people who don't come from these areas of expertise that are usually appointed. I would love to see a patient advocate appointed to this. But you do need a certain skill set to run a large bureaucracy. The idea that you're going to grab a bunch of TV hosts and just put them in charge of these vast agencies with billions and billions of dollar budgets, yeah, that's idiocracy. That's idiocracy. Not because I'm dismissing them because they're TV hosts. I'm dismissing them because they are completely unqualified for these jobs. It's not like you're taking people with expertise in another way. That I would love. That would be a leftist way to reform these agencies. That's something we would all advocate. This is idiocracy. This is idiocracy. This is President Camacho's cabinet here. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services oversee several of the country's largest government programs, providing health coverage to more than 150 million Americans. They regulate health insurance and set policy that guides the prices that doctors, hospitals, and drug companies are paid for many medical services. About a quarter of all federal spending runs through the centers. CMS, quote, CMS touches virtually every family in America through Medicaid and Medicare, and it's probably the most challenging technical, policy, and political job in government, said Drew Altman, the president of KFF, a health research group. Even small, almost daily decisions at CMS are billion-dollar decisions that affect industries and patients with serious illnesses who really care. In a statement announcing his choice, Mr. Trump said Dr. Oz would work closely with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to take on the illness industrial complex and all the horrible chronic diseases left in its wake. Mr. Trump noted that Dr. Oz, he won 9 Daytime Emmy Awards hosting the Dr. Oz show. He's very impressed by that, where he taught millions of Americans how to make healthier lifestyle choices. I suppose by that he means hawking dodgy diet pills that he wound up being dragged in front of Congress for. Dr. Oz, a heart surgeon and the son of Turkish immigrants, does not have experience running a large federal bureaucracy. Past leaders of the agency have typically had experience working in roles that dealt broadly with health insurance policy, including government positions. But Dr. Oz has weighed in on Medicare policy, helping to write a 2020 opinion column in Forbes, arguing for a universal health coverage system in which every American not covered by Medicaid would be enrolled in a private Medicare Advantage plan. The coverage expansion, the column said, would be financed by an affordable 20% payroll tax and would eliminate employer health coverage and the government Medicare program. All right, so this is a typical kind of conservative approach to providing universal health care. You privatize it.
Right, you privatize it.
You put it in the heads of, we can see how well that's working out with Obamacare. That strategy would be far out of the mainstream of conservative health policy. Dr. Oz will also be pressed to outline an agenda for Medicaid, the joint federal-state program that covers more than 70 million poor and disabled Americans. Republican lawmakers and conservative policy experts in recent months have pressed for major changes to the program, including cutting federal funding for it and tightening rules for eligibility. Now, just to make it clear, for anyone who thinks, oh, everyone who's getting Medicare is living high on the hog, I think the income limit in New York State for someone to get Medicaid for a single person is like $21,000.
Yeah,
do you know how poor $21,000 is in New York State?
I mean, anywhere now, but especially in New York, yeah.
In New York State?
Oh, yeah.
Like, at that point, you'd have to be living rent-free with your parents or something to even live on that. There's no place that you could feasibly rent and clothe and feed yourself in New York State for $21,000 a year.
No.
So they think that is too lenient. They want to cut the funding for it from that. What's it going to be? $10,000 a year?
Yeah.
The agency also oversees insurance marketplaces established by the Affordable Care Act, known as Obamacare. Mr. Trump unsuccessfully tried to overturn large portions of the law during his first term and has been vague about his ambitions for it now. Dr. Oz has supported the law's goal of expanded health insurance coverage, though he has been critical of its details, characterizing it as a government takeover of the healthcare system. Dr. Oz has frequently clashed with other medical experts. In the early days of the pandemic, he promoted the malaria drugs hydrochloroquine and chloroquine to ward off the coronavirus, medicines that were shown to be ineffective in treating the virus.
You know, you can get thrown off a blue sky for that.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think he's on there. A decade ago, he went before a Senate panel and was chastised for hyping so-called miracle weight loss products without substantial proof that they worked. In his run for the Senate, Dr. Oz leaned on conservative anger toward pandemic policies that he said took away our freedom. And he still could not beat the brainless wonder there. All right, so I think this is worth noting. Dr. Oz held millions in healthcare investments. Now, we don't know if he is divested from these funds, but his filing in 2022 explained to you why he might be so keen on leaning into Medicare Advantage as a universal healthcare program, a private health insurance plan. According to his 2022 financial disclosure from his Pennsylvania Senate candidacy, Oz holds millions of dollars in stock at healthcare companies, including at least $280,000 in insurer United Health, $50,000 in pharmacy giant CVS, $50,000 in drug maker AbbVie, $15,000 each in Bristol Myers Squibb and Johnson & Johnson, and $615,000 in scientific instrument company Thermo Fisher. At the time of the financial disclosure, Oz and his family's single biggest healthcare holding was between $6 million and $26 million in ShareCare, the digital health and wellness company that he co-founded with WebMD founder Jeff Arnold. ShareCare agreed to be acquired by private equity firm Altaris for $518 million earlier this year. Yeah, no, that's the guy I want making policy for Medicaid and Medicare. A guy with millions of dollars invested in private health insurance interests. Now, speaking of Senator Fetterman, hey, he's all for him. If Dr. Oz is about protecting and preserving Medicare and Medicaid, I'm voting for the dude. Now, to be fair, stroke victims very often have memory problems, so he might not remember what he said when he was running against him in 2022. Dr. Oz is literally at a fundraiser in California today with a bunch of billionaires and Senator Rick Scott, a.k.a. the guy who has a 12-point plan endorsed by Dr. Oz to destroy Social Security and Medicare. You can't make this shit up. Well, maybe he forgot. Maybe that part of his brain is Swiss cheese now.
Fetterman is liable to switch parties between the really hawkish Israel stuff and, calling out the squad members for being anti-Semitic because they don't express the kind of fealty to Israel that he does, talking up Donald Trump in advance of the election, going on TV saying, oh, yeah, no, the people of Pennsylvania love Donald Trump. They feel a great connection to him. I mean, he is liable to just switch. And the MAGA, they love him now because of that, because of his fealty to Israel, because of his talking up of Trump. So, yeah, I mean, he's liable to make the switch. In terms of Dr. Oz, there seems to be a lot of things there seem to be a couple things in common among these Trump picks, which is they're all extremely rich. And they either love Israel or they love Trump. So it's nepotism in either of those two fields. Either you're vehemently pro-Israel or you are a suck-up to Trump. And, of course, a prerequisite to all of it is you have to be obscenely wealthy. One after the other. All of these picks have just money coming out their ears.
Yeah, and Oz also, the article about his investments gets into this. He married into money. His wife is the granddaughter of a guy who founded, some kind of tree pruning company that takes in $27 billion a year.
Wow.
And she's one of the heirs. She's one of many heirs, but yeah, she's very wealthy. So he married into wealth.
Ah, interesting. All right, folks. Well, we have one more cabinet appointment and then a couple more really fun segments over on Rumble. So that's dodissidents.com/Rumble. Gets you over there. Before you head over or while you're heading over, we want to, of course, shout out our patrons and our supporters here. So let me pull this up. Oops, that got here. Not because it doesn't share. There you go. So, folks, if you like what we do here and you want to join the Cool Kids Club, you can join as a member on Patreon, Substack, or Locals, patreon.com/DoDissidents, DoDissidents.substack.com, or you can join our Locals at DoDissidents.locals.com. We're all heading over to Rumble in just a few minutes. When you get there, you'll see a bright red join button underneath the screen. That takes you directly to our Locals, where for as little as $5 a month, you can have your name up in lights here on the show credits. You also get call-in access to our weekly Q&As after every Sunday night live stream. You also get special access to pre-taped interviews, live stream access to pre-taped interviews, special live events when we do them, and, of course, supporter-exclusive streams. Next one will be the day before Thanksgiving. We'll have a Friendsgiving Dissident call-in show to say a special thank you to our patrons. So you get all that for just $5 a month. We try our best to make it as worthwhile as we possibly can, and your support is what keeps this show afloat. So we thank you guys all very much for signing up. What the hell happened there? There it is. Okay, sorry. Had a little technical issue with the scroll there. But thank you guys very much for signing up. We appreciate you all. DoDissidents.locals.com. You guys are the backbone of the show. All right, Michael Castillo, thanks for the $50. Let's have a cowbell for Michael Castillo. Appreciate that. That's very kind of you, good sir. Thank you very much. We appreciate that very much. Michael says, good afternoon, gentlemen. May I request my sound drop as the Jank, are you Jesus Christ, you loser? Please and thank you. I think we could do that. Michael
Sure, we can make that happen.
We can make that happen for you, Michael. Absolutely. That would be a funny sound drop. What are you, Jesus Christ, you loser? We can make that Michael Castillo's signature sound drop for the big donations. Yes, we're happy to make that happen. Done. In the bag for you, my friend. Thank you for your support. All right. So, folks, we have a bunch more Rumble rants to do. We will do those over on the Rumble side because we are about to switch over to Rumble right now for the final 3 segments of the show. So we got plenty of show left, folks. Don't you go anywhere. Go to DoDissidents.com/Rumble. We're going to do a little Linda McMahon. We're going to do a little John Oliver versus J.K. Rowling and Nancy Mace versus Sarah McBride. We got a fun, rowdy crop of segments to do over on Rumble. A lot of chair throwing over there.
It's degenerate and sick.
Yeah, exactly. All righty, folks. Thank you very much for being here with us today. We will take a 5-minute break and see you on the Rumble side. Until then, be safe and be well.
Courage!